All right, we're going to jump right in with transparency. Obviously, that's something you talked about in your statement yesterday. And with so many calls for transparency coming from the community and from state lawmakers, where do you stand on it, and what's your ideal hope for being as transparent as you can be with the department?
That's always a great question. So when I became the Phoenix Police Chief, I definitely said that was one of the things, that's one of the tenets for me, is to be accountable and transparent. I think in today's day and age, the call for it is even greater, and we have a greater responsibility as police executives and as people who serve the public to be as transparent as possible. So that's why I called in the FBI to assist us and run a parallel investigation in the Garcia case. I've always said I'm not afraid of an extra set of eyes, and the FBI will provide that for us.
So many videos going viral these days with a lot of incidents. Again, we have another situation here in Phoenix where another situation with Garcia has gone viral. What made you come to this decision to try to shrink the amount of time it takes for you to disclose video from body cameras?
So, great question. So, in October of last year, we made the decision that we needed to get critical information out faster, so we shortened a 6-month process to a 45-day process. I'm realizing today 45 days is 45 days too long. So when you have individuals in the community who have cell phone video that they post that only provides a snippet of the information, and that information was inaccurate, we have a responsibility to get the facts out. So that's why we released a piece of the body-worn camera footage. The rationale behind why I can't release it all at this moment is we're still talking to victims, we're still looking for evidence, and if I push out all the videos, then I could somehow adversely affect those interviews. So we're working very hard to get that out as soon as possible, but at the same time I won't jeopardize the investigation, because that's our responsibility as law enforcement too.
What do you say to the folks that say even 10 to 14 days is too long?
What I say to that is there is some degree of truth in that, but at the same time too, I have a responsibility as a law enforcement entity who's going to give this case to the county attorney's office to provide a factual and thorough investigation. And again, I won't jeopardize the investigation because I'm getting pressured to release information. I will say this, we're working diligently, my guys are working all the time to try to get that information out as fast as possible, and that is definitely our goal.
And in releasing the end of that particular situation with Garcia, in some ways it seemed to some people as though that maybe did more harm than good, than releasing the unedited version with the 911 calls as they're asking.
Right, so we released that snippet of information because there was rumor or talk out there that the individual in the car was unarmed, and we wanted to make sure that people saw the factual information.
Now, of course, you marched with the protesters. You stood with them to talk about these calls for racial equality, for better reform in police departments. You're a mother, you have 2 sons. As you're standing with other mothers and seeing what they're going through, what advice do you have for them realistically on how we can get reform so Black and brown people of color don't continue to be the highest statistic when it comes to policing?
So I say work with us. You will not hear me say that we should not have police reform, because we should have police reform. You've heard me say earlier too that when the policymakers, mayor and council decided on civilian review and civilian oversight of the police department, I welcome that. Again, I welcome the opportunities for us to be better, for people to trust us, for us to be accountable and responsible. And quite frankly, law enforcement, this isn't new to law enforcement. So we've had to change, adjust, improve, change our training, change our tactics. This isn't new to us, but the speed at which folks want us to do this has really been exhausting, but at the same time exciting, because I know that good things are coming.
Realistically, what would you like to see as a time frame to get things to what you would think are acceptable levels?
Again, I want to make sure that I have a thorough investigation. So for me to quantify and put an absolute number on that and jeopardize the investigation, then I'm not providing justice to anyone involved in the scenario and situation. It is a delicate balance in providing the facts and information in the case and doing it at a speed that is faster than normal. But at the same time, I've challenged my employees to make sure that we're able to do that. I also want to say this, I'm the biggest fan of the Phoenix Police Department employees. They are amazing and by and large do a great job day in and day out. They put a uniform on in spite of all the challenges. They put on a headset to answer calls for service, or they're standing on the tactical lines to help folks who want to protest against us be safe and do so. So I'm I'm looking forward to what this is going to look like in the end. I know change is hard, change is challenging, change is rough, but I'm not afraid of change, and nor is the Phoenix Police Department afraid to do that.
So what do you think then of calls all across the nation, not just here in Phoenix, for people to try to defund the police?
Great question. So first I'd like to know at times what that looks like, but I will also say if you talk to any police chief across the country, we would all say that there are some calls that we shouldn't go on in the first place. So if there's a social services call, if it's a homeless call, is it a mental health call, am I the right person to send, or is a blue suit the right person to send? And many of us would argue, no, we're not. We would love to have those calls for service taken off the backs of the men and women who respond to those calls, and put us back in focus on crime suppression efforts. So we're looking forward to the opportunities to make sure that that's going to happen.
Is that right? Was that my last one? Or was that my...
She's trying to get me to step back because I moved.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I was just making sure. Last question, anyways. Kind of in that vein, defunding the police, in all honesty, is not probably realistically going to happen. So, in the meantime, when you're still trying to run a police department, a major police department, you're trying to recruit new officers, what kind of improvements would you like to see in training? Because there are going to be so many instances where you have to deal with addiction and social issues and mental health issues.
So we train for that at the Academy as we speak too. So as I mentioned earlier, change is not new to law enforcement. Phoenix PD has been amazing over the years at adjusting, changing, learning, and improving. And we're going to provide training for our employees that matches what they're seeing on the streets. One of the new things that we're doing is we're having virtual headsets. So when our officers who are in training right now, they can walk through the process of someone who's schizophrenic, someone who's having a mental health issue, someone who's having a drug issue, and figure out ways to de-escalate those. So providing actual opportunities is really what's going to make us better.